Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. This is episode number 197, if you can believe it. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter primarily. And these videos can be found on our YouTube channel as well. We cover everything. We usually put out 3 written articles every day, in the morning, the evening. Morning, lunchtime, and in the evening here in the UK. And we cover everything from F1 to IndyCar to touring cars, bikes, rallying, World Endurance Championship, NASCAR, and anything else in between. And we cover that in the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, birthdays, on this days, breaking news, liveries, all that kind of stuff that we love in motorsport. And we cover it. We're here just to share a love of motorsport. No controversy, no nonsense, no other clickbait or anything else like that. We're here because we love motorsport. So do search for the Hard Compound on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. And come and join in the fun. We'd love to have you on board. If, in case you hadn't noticed, we do live video interviews just like this one. And just like this one, these go out on our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube channel only. They're automatically saved in the live section on YouTube and in the video section on Facebook. As I said, we've done nearly 200 of these now. I'm not going to name all the guests, mainly because I can't, but just to give you an idea, we've spoken to the likes of Mr. Mario Andretti and Jackie Ickx, Mr. Chip Ganassi. We've spoken to Jackie Oliver. We've spoken to David Brabham and Carl Wendlinger and Emanuele Pirro and Mika Salo and Takuma Sato, Will Power, Alex Palou, Ari Landijk, Danny Sullivan, Mark Suro, touring car drivers like Fabrizio Giovinardi, Ricard Rydell, Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, etc., etc. You get the idea. So do come along and have a look of those when you get a moment, but don't do it just yet, because we've got a great guest joining us this evening, someone I've wanted to speak to for a very, very long time. He started racing on the frozen lakes of Sweden. He's worked through the single-seater feeder series, and he's gone all the way through to win the IndyCar or the IRL Championship and the Indianapolis 500, my favorite race in the world, and much, much more. So without any further ado, we're going to bring him in. Please join me in extending a very, very warm welcome to Mr. Kenny Bräck.
Hello, good evening.
Kenny, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, very well. All the better for having you on. I know I've been pestering you for a while to come on here, so I'm very grateful that you've come on to have a chat. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Fantastic, fantastic stuff. Right, before we get cracking, just want to say hello to the people who are already tuning in on Facebook. Looks like all the technology is working. If you have any comments or questions, do pop them in the comment section, and we will work them in as we go. Or just chat amongst yourselves, really, whatever you like to do. So thank you all for tuning in already. There's a good number of you tuning in already. Thank you. We have coffee. We're good to go. So Kenny, obviously, we'll get into your career very shortly. But firstly, how's it all been? How's it all been this year? How's the summer been? Because it feels like it's behind us now, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, it's towards the end now. Yes. No, it's been really good. I've got a really good balance in my life. It's been a great summer. You know, I built a house in Sweden, on the lake in Sweden. It was finished last year. I still live in the UK, but go there quite often, and so you know, and travel around a little bit and do my projects. It's been really nice.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. And obviously, I commented just when we first were talking off air. I can see the guitars behind you. That obviously piqued my interest. You're still you're still playing a bit and still recording a bit?
I spend a lot of time writing music and recording. Yes, I have a band in London where we write and record, and I have a collaboration in Sweden where I write and record with other people. So I'm going there next week to do some recordings and stuff like that. Yeah, it's you know, music was always my equal hobby with cars when I grew up, but then cars took precedence, but the guitar has always been with me, so to sing. So now that I'm have sort of retired from professional racing and all that, then I can do music. You know, you can do music till you're 95 to 100 years old. That's great about that, you know.
Yeah. Just look at the Rolling Stones.
That's right.
or my personal favorite band, Iron Maiden. So
There
yeah,
you go.
yeah, you can do it until you drop, which is great. It's a nice sort of distraction, isn't it? You can sort of take yourself away from all the fast things and noisiness of racing, and it's
a bit like, you know, I think cars and guitars, you know, or you know, it's got a lot in common, you know, the creative side of things. You know, when you drive a race car, you know, you can't really win unless you create a good setup on the car. And to create that setup is a lot of feelings involved. You know, it's a lot of it's not something you can really you know, come up with in a through computers and stuff. They'll help you, but in the end of the day, you need those fine nuances, you know, to suit your driving style. And so it's a lot of creativity involved in that. And when you do music, it's the same thing. It's about creating something that comes from your, you know, spirit. It's quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. You can it's something in you that you can get out and you can share and express yourself, which is great.
Yeah.
I haven't played music in ages, and there's a reason I'm terrible at it. But anyway,
well, it's all in the eye of the beholder, you know. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. Well, I'll put it this way: I can play guitar, but there's a reason I don't sing. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well.
No, great stuff. No, and that's. I mean, we could talk music all night, but we could talk some.
That would be more fun. Couldn't we do that?
Yeah, just have a chat about. Yeah, it'd be fine. Yeah, no problem at all. Actually, I had Rick Parfitt Jr., obviously son of Rick Parfitt from Status Quo, came on here, and the first half hour was the least motorsport chat ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was all about rock bands.
Yeah.
But yeah, all good fun. But no, we must dig into the motorsport, I guess. And what I'd like to do is on all these chats is start right at the very start. I mean, obviously you're from Sweden. I've had a quick look. It's not the most motorsport centric place by the looks of it. It doesn't look like the original, like the home of a racing driver from where you're from. But where did the love of motorsport come from?
Well, you know, to start off, say, you know, like, I built that house in, like I said to you last year, on the lake, you know, and that's about 100 meters from my parents' home. Oh, and nice. my parents were where I grew up, and, you know, where my parents still live. My dad is 97 this year. Mother is 88, so they're pretty old. But I was sitting down there in this summer, and somebody came to interview me, and it just hit me in this interview. I said to him, you know, I traveled an awful long way to to be back in nearly the same place as I grew up.
Yeah, you've got a long way to come back home.
Yeah, but I think to answer your question was it was my dad who helped me get going, in the sense that he lit the fire in the interest in me, you know, because the Swedish Rally was passing by where I live, but we live sort of on a lake, and it was on the other side of the lake. So in February, when I grew up, it was 1.5 meters of snow, you know, and it was cold. And we used to drive. My dad used to take me and drive across the lake ice in the evening, because the special stage that passed there was in the middle of the night. At like 2 o'clock in the morning, they whizzed by, you know. So we used to drive across the lake, climb up through the, you know, snow to the side of the road, and then we used to watch all these, you know, Hanno Mikkola, Björn Waldegård. He had at the time he had this Lancia Stratos, you know. It was unlike any other car. All the others drove, you know, they had Saabs and they had Fords and Volvos and whatever. And then Björn comes in the Lancia Stratos, you know, the sound, the flames through the exhaust system, the glowing, you know, brake discs and cloud of snow, the smell. It was just mesmerizing, this thing for me. And that's how my interest in motorsport started. You know, it wasn't racing, it was rally. And Björn was the biggest hero of mine. And you know, when I was about I think I was about 6 years of age, and I used to sit in my dad's lap in the car and steering the car on the ice, you know, and to slide and to, you know, obviously in the beginning probably spun a lot of stuff, you know, it's spun around, but it was like an outworldly experience for me to balance the car, you know, just on this like edge, you know. um, and I never forget these moments. You know, that's how it started.
Yeah.
But my family didn't have any means, you know, to support a racing career, but the interest was born there. Um, and it's funny because Björn was my first hero. I never met Björn in a long, long time. You know, I retired in 2005 from IndyCar racing, and I sat in Arlanda, Sweden, the airport,
Yeah.
in the lounge, and this must have been probably around 2000, well, 2010 maybe, or something like this, maybe, yeah. And this old lady came over to me, you know, and she said, "Oh, my husband is a big fan of yours, and would you come over and say hi?" And so I said, "Oh yeah, well, you know, I could do that." And as I walked over there, when I came close there, it was Björn Valdegård, and that's how I met him the first time. I mean,
Oh, so you
after,
went full circle almost, and
yeah, all these years, you know,
wow.
like, and I met him, and we since then we became friends. You know, great guy, and you know, he was also participating in a. I drove some rallies, you know, in whenever that was, 2012, 13, or
Yeah.
whatever. And Björn was participating in the Midnight Sun Rally in Sweden, where I won that rally, but he came third, I believe. And so we became friends, you know. But it was, for all these years throughout the career, I never met him. It was an unreal, surrealistic sort of experience to bump into him in the lounge in Arlanda Airport. But
That's crazy because I mean, and the fact that he came over to you saying he's a big fan of yours, and
yeah,
you're like, well,
exactly.
that's how I started with you. You know, wow,
Yeah,
that's
it
very
was
cool.
completely wild,
Yeah.
completely wild. I mean,
And
he was, you know, world champion, you know, in rallying, and he was the one that I looked up to so much when I was, you know, at a young age. And yeah, so
that's amazing. I mean, we'll come to rallying a bit later on, but I've spoken on here to like Petter Solberg and to Malcolm Wilson and even like Dave Richards from ProDrive.
mm.
They're all mad. They're absolutely. I mean, and it's like rally drivers and the guys who do the bike racing on the roads. Just the brain is. I don't know. Only half of it works or something. I'm not sure. It's yeah, it's incredible.
But yeah, it is, rallying is a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah,
So I mean, the I my car experiences, they I started, you know, driving cars on the ice and on the gravel roads. That's how I started.
yeah,
And you know, then I did some rallies and as well after the racing career, you know, IndyCar career. And it was interesting because when I did those rallies, you know, I had a great guy from Wales preparing the car, Mark Soloway. You know, he builds fantastic rally cars, and you know, and we did a couple of rallies together, and I had a, a world championship co-driver called Emil Axelsson. He's fantastic co-driver in Sweden, you know, and we and I had an English guy as well called Dan, who was also great. But with Emil anyway, I said to him, look, Emil, how how fast are you driving in rally? You know, before we started our sort of adventure together, we did two rallies together, I believe, and we won both of them. But this was before we started. I said to him, look, how fast are you driving in rally? And he looks at me and said, what? I said, how fast are you going? You know, I mean, he goes, well, we drive 100%, of course. You know, okay. And so we did those rallies, and we won. There was one in England, Dukeries up in Nottingham, I believe.
Nottingham way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we won. I think we won. I think it was the first time in Britain where like an historic rally car had won the class, two-wheel class overall. So
Right.
we did pretty well. And then we went on to the Midnight Sun Rally, which is a big rally in Sweden, really nicely organized in that. And so we ended up winning that too. And then we were sitting at the banquet, and I said to Emil, how do you remember I asked you how fast you were driving in rally? And he like said, yeah. I said, yeah. And you said 100%. And he goes, yeah. I said, yeah, but now we've done 2 rallies. We won both of them, but I haven't driven faster than 70%. And he was like, what? But
Really?
yeah, but the thing is with rally is that, in racing, you go to a track, you do 50 laps around the track. It's not possible to drive any quicker around that lap. You have to develop the car to go quicker, because if you brake 10 centimeters later, you're going to skid off the line, and you're right at the limit everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But when you drive rallying, you sit that you don't know how the road looks, and it's gravel, and it could be loose gravel, and it could be hard, and you listen to some lunatic who's sitting next to you, talking gibberish notes, left, right, crest, 180, brake, blah 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 blah, and you have to always do a lot of improv behind the wheel in rallying. And you need to leave a little bit of how do you say, a little bit of margin, not margin, but if you would drive these stages 30 times, you would go 20-30% quicker, because you would know everything. And that's what I meant when I asked him that question, so
Yeah.
it's quite funny.
It's great. You kind of can't go at it the whole way, the first time you do it, because you're not sure what's going to happen. Or like,
you have to drive as fast as you can, but you have to be prepared to, to know that something untoward might be around the corner, so you have to, you can't win unless you finish, so you got to be balancing it.
You just gotta come back a little bit.
But it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. We had so much fun, Emil and I, in these cars, but anyway.
My only experience of rallying myself, I spoke with excuse me, I was out in Finland in 2009, 10 maybe, in winter, up in like Joensuu, up in the sort of over in the east, and Ari Vatanen has got a rally school out there, and I got bought like a rally sort of experience.
Yeah.
And I got taken down one of the stages by one of the trained lunatics they have there, and it's an odd feeling going sideways at 80 miles an hour towards a tree. But it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's great fun.
In Nottingham, in the forest there, I remember it was a tiny little narrow asphalt road, right? And it was wet, and it was oak trees on both sides. It was like a big things, like they were like 80-90 centimeters in diameter. These trees, they were old, like 150-200 years old, and it was like a kilometer of these, and the road was widening like this, and I was flat in fifth, like on the rev limiter. It was like a couple of 100 kilometers an hour, and slipping and sliding, just and whizzing through. You can't imagine. If something happens, it's not good.
It's very bad. And that's why rally drivers, their brains are different. They just crazy, absolutely crazy stuff. Just a couple of comments are coming in. Yes, I can see the comments, folks. I will work them in when we get to that point of the chat. Do not worry. But rallying is great fun. But obviously, we kind of know you for your exploits on track. When did you first start going racing? Because I sort of know that you went sort of karting around the age of sort of 13, 14, that kind of time. How did it sort of feel being on something with a bit of grip? It's not a frozen lake.
Well, I think that the frozen lake stuff that I did was really useful, because I didn't have any money to buy any rally tires or stuff. So I ran on summer tires on ice, and I did that for years, and you really learn how to do car control and, be smooth with the steering wheel and look for the grip and everything else. You build up like I don't know, it's like, you build up this knowledge base in your body, so you don't have to think about it. It's just there. And I think that helped me all through my career, really. But, I didn't have any resources to do any motorsports. So there was a guy that he owned a local youth hostel nearby me, and I worked there one summer when I was, I think, 12 years of age, as a handyman, cutting the grass and stuff like that, mowing the lawns. And I had my own car there, and he noticed that I was driving, and I had a trailer behind with a lawnmower on it, and so, it wasn't quite maybe lawful. And so he, instead of paying me, he bought me a go-kart, and that's how it started. And how he had a background in racing. He'd won the Swedish championship in Formula Ford, and he'd been doing some rallying and stuff like that. So he helped me start, but it was a difficult start because I had to do all the mechanics work and everything myself, and I didn't have a driver license. I couldn't drive to the go-kart tracks, so it was very few races, and more often than not my kart broke down because of my poor execution with the spanners. But I learned a lot about the mechanical sides, and so that's how it started. So I owe a lot to him. He was my first mentor, actually, in racing, but also in the way how to find sponsors to pay for all this, because there was no way for me to afford anything unless I had company sponsoring it.
Which, as we know, is often it's people say like money talks these days, but it's always talks, isn't it? No one can do this without backing and the right people, and obviously you had the right person behind you to get you started. And you went through the karting, you had some sort of success, races and championships and things like that. But while we're on the subject of finances, it was at 85, I believe, you moved into cars around that kind of time. Was it a big financial leap as much as anything else, getting from karts to cars? Because
I think it might have been 84, but I was 18 years of age, and it was financially, of course, difficult, but I had some sponsorship because my mentor taught me how to get sponsorship, and I tried to construct things so that could be valuable for a company to buy. I just didn't sell a sticker on a car. I said to them, look, you can take your customers and we go to a racetrack, and I give you you can drive the racing car, and we give a little driver course and this and that. I found a lot of things that I could sell. So I had some money. The whole thing that I didn't understand back then was that you can't win in racing unless you have a good car or a good team, And so I tried to, I made deals with British teams. I wanted to race in England, English Formula Ford, Formula 3, but a budget back then in Formula Ford, I think it was like £120,000 maybe, something like that for a year. And I had maybe 50. So, it wasn't really possible for a team to give me a good run, but you could always find a team that, that didn't perhaps have the right stuff, so you could compete, you could be in the field, but you couldn't really win. And that was the whole thing that I kept going like that for a long time in my racing career, probably about nearly 10 years, where I was trying. And yes, it was good for developing your driving style. You really have to push yourself to the maximum, but even if you did that, you were still not winning. So without winning, it's hard to be in racing. So that was but it was a lot of it was a good lesson.
Yeah, absolutely right. Wow, just thinking of the money even back then. That was a huge chunk of money. 40 odd years ago.
Don't
But then,
mention it. Don't mention the years.
yeah, sorry, yeah. Let's
You
not
mean
talk
a
years.
couple of years ago?
Yeah, 5.
Yes.
Everything was 5 years ago. We'll go with
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Yeah, that feels much safer. Absolutely right. I had it in my head when I said 40. I was like, oh my god. Anyway,
I know.
but yeah, because I saw you did a few races in '85, got a podium that year, '86 back in with a full season. In that first season, did you have any expectations in that first full season in '86 of how the season might go? Obviously, you want to win, you want to do the best you can, and you want to be competitive. But did you think it would go as well as it did?
Um, I think I won. I won the Swedish championship in whenever it was. Was it 86 or
86, I
85?
thought, yeah.
86, yeah. And that was a good effort, you know. But it's a difference, you know. I mean, like it's a difference in competitiveness in Sweden than it is in England. English Formula Ford back then was like that was unbelievably competitive, you know. And it was a lot of cars. It was like I can't remember, probably 40, 50 cars on the grid.
Yeah.
And I remember one time at Silverstone, I don't know if it was SO or RAC championship, but anyway, I started up front somewhere, third or fourth, I can't remember, something like that. And we took off. And at Silverstone back then, you know, you started where the old paddock is now.
Yes, yeah, before cops and yeah.
Yeah, and there was a bridge over there, you know, like I think it was a Dunlop or something there.
Yeah.
And we took off and through cops and a few other corners down big straights on the back there, and then it was a red flag. Okay, so we all go back to the pits, you know, and step out, and half the field was left on the start finish line, you know, cars everywhere. One flew through the bridge, and it was like a big accident.
Wow.
So we got called into the clerk of the course office, you know, and they gave us a real bollocking there, you know, because of course the crazy driving and all that stuff. And then we had to wait for about an hour and a half until they cleared it up, and then we had to go again. You know, I think we were then down to like 15 cars left on the grid or something like this. Yeah.
Wow.
And we took off again, and we got through cops, and there was another red flag.
Oh,
And I think I was in fourth place or something, and I was the last car on the track. All the others were scattered on the on the start finish line again. So by the time we got to the pits that time, they just said, "Pack up and go home. Just don't place around here anymore." It was brutal back in those days.
just absolute carnage. Yeah. I mean, I did actually think, wow. I mean, I did actually notice it. I think it was '87. You did some races over here. I think it was the first time, and I saw on the grid you were racing against the guys like Alan Menu and Eddie Irvine and Dave Coyne and guys like that. So it was a good grid despite the accidents.
It was a lot of competition. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm sure it was good fun.
Yeah.
Accident aside. Just to sort of step on into was it '88? I think it was your first time you went into F3. I think that was back home in Sweden with the brilliantly named Team Ichiban. I love that. That's a great name. I mean, again, that's another step up, isn't it? And I guess there was the extra like dynamic of downforce and wings and slicks and all that kind of stuff. Most of the people that I've spoken to said they much preferred it because you could really keep your foot in and because of the downforce. How did you find it the first time you got into one of those cars?
Well, I mean, it's a significant step up from Formula Ford, of course, F3, you know, and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I think we had a good season that year, but we started off a little bit poor because there was back then there was a difference in the fuel in England and Sweden, and so in England they ran maybe let's just call it 98, and in Sweden they ran 102 octane, and I think we had Tom's Toyota engines, and we didn't find out until mid-season that our engines were made. It was a British engine, you know, so we were not running the correct compression ratio for the extra octanes we had in Sweden. So Once we corrected that, we had a really strong ending of the season, and it was fun. It was a lot of good competition in Sweden as well. I mean, Rickard Rydell was there. He was pretty good in British F3 and also BTCC. So Michael Johansson, for example, was another one, and so there was quite a few good drivers.
Yeah, it was a competitive grid. I've got here that you took some podiums and took a race win. I mean, I guess that was nice to take a race win in a I guess a proper F3 car. I guess nice to kind of get that first win under your belt and a bit of a confidence boost, I guess.
Yeah.
What else I saw here? Where are we? Oh yes, I remember watching this on TV. The Cellnet Super Prix at Brands Hatch. I used to love the Super Prix at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
It was always on. It was the only F3 race they really showed on the TV over here. I think. I don't think they showed much. Well, they showed highlights, but this was the one where they showed the full race. And again, I just looked on the grid. There was guys, like Damon Hill was on the grid, Peter Cox, Roland Ratzenberger, David Brabham, Scott Stringfellow, Paul Warwick. I mean, etc., etc. A really strong grid. I mean, memories of that race?
I have poor memory. I don't really. I know that we raced there. I don't think I was supposed to race there. I got somehow some last minute deal somehow. And I don't quite remember much of it more than that it was pissing down with rain. And
of course
and I think, but I did quite well until I spun off. I spun off out of what's that corner after Druids?
Graham Hill Bend at the
Graham
bottom.
Hill Bend. I think I spun out there because there was a flood running through.
Yeah.
And somehow I put a wheel on the really wet patch, and I think that I ended up on the grass in the end.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of good drivers there, and a big race.
Yeah. And obviously at the time with F3 being, it was F4, Formula Ford, Formula 3, and then on to F3000, F1. It was the major pathway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And I guess British F3 was your aim at that time, because of it being the route that it was. And you obviously moved in '89 with Richard Dutton Racing. How did all that come together? I'm always fascinated by how these things come together.
With Richard?
Yeah.
Oh God, that was, I signed on with a team in Britain called Exclusive Autosport, I think, for '89. And as I said earlier, I had no money, so there was only one guy, Alan Docking. I came around to shop for a ride, and I can't remember the budget now, but I had less than half of the budget, of course. I had no money. So Richard, what's his name? Alan Docking. He said to me, Kenny, I have to be honest with you. There's nobody who's going to run you for that money in a competitive team here. So you might as well you go home. It's no point. But young and naive. I found a team that was could take it on. But of course, it was not very competitive equipment. And so how it ended up was I quit the team, and I had some. I had an engine from the team, because I had an engine that I raced with, that was mine. And so I went to Richard and I said, look, could you run me for a couple of races? If I give you the engine, you can have the engine, And Richard goes, well, can I see the engine? And I said, yeah, it's a Spies engine, it's a works engine and everything, I thought, And Richard took it and he put it on the dyno, and it was 25 horsepower less than it should be. And that was a lot in F3, because they didn't have more than like 150, 160 horsepower. So Richard comes back and says, Kenny, the bad news is, the good news is that this engine that you have, it's actually 25 horsepower off. But the good news is, he said, I have a Toyota engine who's only 10 horsepower off.
Right.
So if you give me this engine, I lend you the Toyota engine, and we could do a couple of races,
Okay, right.
So that's how that deal came together. And I did a couple of races, and I think on the long Grand Prix track at Brands, maybe we finished sixth or something.
Yeah.
But there was some toe link problems as well, so we didn't have a great season. But that's how the deal came together. And Richard did a better job for me than the other team, of course. But it was difficult, as I said earlier, if you don't have the budget to really sign up for a full season with a proper team, then it's difficult,
Yeah.
But Richard is a great guy. I mean, when I helped Marcus Ericsson after my IndyCar career, Marcus drove for Richard through BMW, Formula BMW and Formula 3 in Britain. So Richard is a great guy. We got along really good.
Yeah, that's great. Nice that you mentioned Marcus, because Marcus has won the only Indy 500 that I've ever been to. So I've got a soft spot for Marcus. He's a good lad. Yeah, which is great. But we'll come to Indy because you did something there as well, didn't you? So we'll come to him very shortly. But it's great to hear about Richard Dutton and the time in F3. But the Formula Opel Lotus Euro Series, which was again super competitive, wasn't there? And some of the guys on the grid were unbelievable. I've got a name here which we'll come to. But again, I guess that was another different kind of animal in terms of the car and everything, in terms of a step up.
The Euro Series.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was not. It was the actual cars. They were a little slower than F3, I would think. If you look at the lap times and that, but they raced on a lot of good international circuits. Everywhere. So it was a good training ground for learning Grand Prix tracks and that. So it had its place. And there was a lot of competition there. At the time when I was there as well. So. Had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, and just looking at the circuits, I mean, obviously you'd raced in Sweden, you'd raced in the UK, but all of a sudden you're on circuits, as you say, like the Grand Prix circuits, like Hockenheim and Imola and Zolder, and the Österreich, which was awesome back in the day.
Yeah,
before they ruined it, before they tightened it all up. And
I know, when I came to. Speaking of tracks, Spa, for example, back in the day, Spa was a normal road, but it was very fast.
Yeah.
And I came back with Marcus, I went to the States and I spent a lot of years there, and then I came back and he was going to do, I think, Formula BMW, or was it Formula 3? One of the two at Spa. And I said to him, look, Spa is not like, Silverstone. Spa is a very dangerous track. It's like narrow, it's like fast, it's like this and that. And then we arrive at Spa, and now all of a sudden there was a track outside the track. All of a sudden it was massive off zones off the track. So I mean,
runoff areas and
yes. And I had prepared Marcus for the worst thing ever, and it wasn't like that at all when we went there. But
it's a bit more space to how it used to be. But then again, I guess like the really older guys would say the same thing about the original Spa, wouldn't they? They'd go, it's easy, because the original Spa was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually drove on a bit of it this year
I know,
in a hire car. The bit from Vernonville round to what was it, down to, is it Stavalo or Mal or somewhere, wherever it is, the old bit of the circuit. And I drove it in a Hyundai Tucson, and I was just thinking of, I'm not quite Jackie Stewart here, but it's a cool place and a cool circuit, and obviously you kind of drove in a great era. But I mean, of all those, I mean, again, there was Paul Ricard, Silverstone, and Spa, and Estoril, Jerez. I mean, it was a great calendar, and as you say, some great circuits to learn.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
really, really cool one. Excuse me. And you spent a couple of years there. You raced against some amazing. I think Rubens was in there, wasn't he? Rubens Barrichello and a few others were on the track there.
Yeah.
I guess in those 2 years you learned an awful lot just from different circuits and the cars and who you were up against, things like that. Yeah,
I did. I thought it was a good school, to go through all that, you know. But again, that was right at the end of Formula Opel Lotus was at the end of my struggles with let's say budget and trying to race internationally
Yes.
without having the proper funding. So at the end of the second year of Opel Lotus, a friend of mine and I decided that, look, for next year we're gonna race in something that we actually can afford.
Yeah.
To race in something that we could actually buy the equipment to be competitive, at least, you know. So it depends on other things than, you know, cars and equipment. And that was I would say that was one of the really important forks in the road for me when it comes to my career, because that was the missing part to actually get something, to sit in something where I could actually be competitive. So that was for the season. I think 91 was the last season I drove in Opel Lotus, and then 92 I did something completely, I guess, untoward. I
was
went
looking
to,
through your career and I went, huh? I had a quick look at it. I was like,
yeah. When I looked in my wallet, you know, I was like, well, this is the amount of money that I actually have. Where can I buy a competitive situation? And it ended up being Renault Clio in Scandinavia, you know, and that was you know, several steps down from where I've been racing, of course. And even my mentor, you know, that got me started in racing, he told me beforehand that this is the most crazy decision that anyone can ever make, you know. And I said, well, you know, maybe, but I got to try it. And so I did. And it turned out to be the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah. I mean, of all the, of all the turning points you would think in a career, going from an international single-seater series to a national domestic saloon car series with Renault.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have thought that would be a major turning point, but obviously it was, and you guys had a great season. You won the championship pretty, not easily, but pretty convincingly. And you know, I mean, that season must have been a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, you know. It was
like winning racing.
It was a lot of fun because it actually put the fun back into it, you know. Like, motorsport is a tough sport, you know, and so it's a lot of pressure, not only to try to win races, you know, but also to finance your sport, you know. It's a lot of money when you're young, and lots of pressure. And so once you start winning, and then everything becomes more easy, you know, easier to find sponsorship, people wants to help you, and it was a major turning point for me. And all these things, you know, I had built up a lot of contacts in 10 years doing this stuff, you know. I've built up a lot of contacts in companies and so forth, Volvo in Sweden and all that stuff. So when I started winning, all these things came together. And believe it or not, you know, like, I was sitting after the 92 season, having won the Scandinavian Championship. I think I got $10,000 in prize money, you know, for that. And I read Autosport, and there was this advert that Barber Saab, you know, come to the, you know, race in the States, $7,500 for a race. And I wanted to get back into single seaters, and so I looked at this, and there was a phone number to the States, and so I called them up, and they go, yeah, we have a European agent called Rob Wilson, you know, and maybe you can go and talk to him, blah blah blah. So I called Rob and flew to London, and we met at a place in Queensway in London, and I said to Rob, can you get me a car for the next race? That was Miami, street course in Miami.
Yeah.
And Rob says, yeah, I could probably help you there, and blah blah. Could you give me half a test day? You know, just I never raced these cars. I need to, you know, at least know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I see what I can do. And so he organized half a test day at Sebring and then this race in Miami. And that was going to cost $7,500. And by the time you pay the airfare, you know, that's $10,000.
That's it, yeah.
But that's what I had. I had 10,000 in prize money. So I spent all that money, went to the States, did all this stuff, qualified on the front row there in Miami, and then won the race. And guess what? $10,000 in prize money to win the race. So I'm like, okay, I can do another go. I have another go, you know. And so I had another go, and I won again. And then I had another go and won and go and won. And all of a sudden, I won the championship.
That's incredible. I mean, when you got in the car, I guess you thought, yeah, I can drive this thing. I should be pretty good. You know, I should be okay. Did you think you were going to go and win that first race? Because I guess first time racing in the States, street course, not easy. Miami, different climate. The whole thing is different.
It was very different. Yeah, it was completely like a dream. It was like a dream, you know, like South Beach and all these women, girls, you know, all that stuff that you've just seen on TV, you know. You were right in the middle of it. And it was surreal in a way. But, yeah, that's how it happened. And
that's amazing.
I couldn't, yeah, it was like I said, that turning point to go to Renault Clio, and it sort of reset the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you know, the greatest learning that I took from all this is that I never, you know, drive something now that I can't win with. You know, if the car isn't there or the team isn't there, it's no point. And this is the single advice I give to any young driver who comes along and wants to talk about how to move forward in racing. You know, I always tell them, don't drive anything that can't win, because it's just no point.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that's important.
You kind of can't just drive for the sake of driving. I mean, even though, you know, you have to look at the budgets and everything involved, but yeah, if you're not going to be competitive, then there's obviously no point. But I mean, I just keep coming back to this. It's kind of, yeah, you won your first race, you got some money. Okay, I'll have another go. And it was like a race to race basis.
Yeah.
I just had a quick look at the results you had. I mean, obviously you'd done a bit of testing at Sebring. You won on the street course at Miami. You went to Sebring and won. Not the easiest circuit in the world because it's bumpy as hell. But and all of a sudden you're racing and winning at circuits like Lime Rock, Belle Island, Detroit, Watkins Glen. I mean, jeez. I mean, you must have thought, what is going on here?
It was
fantastic.
It was absolutely fantastic. And the most fantastic, you know, I also did Renault Clio that year, but in Europe, the European Championship, you know, because in '92, we were invited to do the Renault Clio race in Monaco. They did a race before the Formula One Grand Prix there, and so we drove down there. You know, we had a big old furniture bus that was, you know, modified to be a racing transport bus. And so we came down to Monaco with this old crappy, you know, furniture bus from 1953, had never been, you know, resprayed since then, you know, rusty doors hanging off on the back, you know. And we came down to Monaco where all these big semi-trailers with Marlboro sponsorship, and the engine was completely worn out. It was black smoke, you know. So we were parked in an underground parking garage just at the entry of the tunnel in Monaco. And we drove in there, and these you know, marshals, they came running and like, shut the engine off, you're stinking up the whole place. So we had to shut the engine off and push this. We had to get help to push this big bus into our parking spot in this underground parking garage. That's where the paddock for the Renault Clio was. Wow. And everyone was laughing at us, you know. They like, these crazy guys from Northern Europe, look at them, they're crazy, they don't know what they're doing. By the time qualifying was done, I was 1 second on pole, you know. I was over a second clear of second place guy. And that was too much for the French at the time, because they took my car and they completely stripped the whole engine, like 2 molecules. I mean, it was nothing left of it.
Wow.
And of course, we didn't have a spare engine, right? And how could we get this engine together for the next day? It was impossible. So, so we managed to, I don't know, we borrowed or leased an engine from somewhere. I can't remember. Got the engine in the car anyway, and so it was raining, and I took the lead, and I sort of built a 10-second lead. But in those days, I was kind of crazy. So I never really thought strategically, I didn't think maybe I should slow down a little bit and just drive safely.
Yeah.
No, it was flat out until I made a mistake and went off a runway, and got passed by 5-10 cars, and then rejoining and drive my way up to the lead again, and leading again and making the same thing again. And then I think I ended up third in the end because there was not enough laps left to reclaim the lead. But because of this, Renault wanted me to do the European Championship in '93 simultaneously when I did the Barber Saab in the States. So I was flying back and forth, you see, and doing Renault Clio races as well, which I won quite a few of them actually on the European circuit. I didn't compete in the in the whole championship, but I did the race I could. Now, and that landed me a test drive with the Williams Formula One team, believe it or not.
Wow.
That was so it was like all these things. They just, they just fell in the right places with that,
Yeah.
with the start of the winning. Yeah,
That's crazy. I mean, it just again the most unlikely route to the cockpit of an F1 car. I mean, it's just one of those things that happens. I mean, I just want to talk about Williams because obviously where I live, Williams are about 30 miles down the road. They're not far away from here.
yeah.
What was it like getting in a Williams and
It was unbelievable.
having I
Like
mean, you must have thought this is
that
incredible.
that
I mean,
that was the car that I think Alain Prost won the World Championship with. It was an FW 15.
15 from 93.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it had all the
Wow.
active suspension, all that stuff. It was unbelievable. The how you could jump from Barber Saab and Renault Clio to straight into a Formula One car. That was pretty good going.
That's
and
unbelievable.
and from that, I managed to convince Volvo, because Volvo was behind the Renault Clio program, Volvo Sweden. I managed to convince them and their network of companies that all these big companies work with. They have cellular phone companies that, and they have all kinds of companies that works with the big companies, doing odd bits and pieces for their customers. I managed to convince all these guys that we're going to have to do Formula 3000 the following year,
Right.
because this Formula One test was really successful. We were really quick in that car, and so the momentum that carried, all of a sudden I had, I don't know, 500,000 pounds in sponsorship money, or 600. I can't remember. It was a lot of money, I remember, at least.
Yeah.
And
Big budget.
and started a cooperation with Magic Motorsport, Robert Singh at the time, and he wasn't in Formula 3000 at the time, so he set up a team he started a new team, and I drove there, and so that's how it all came together. After all these years, like 8-10 years of struggling, all of a sudden in a couple of years it just was like you pull up the dam,
Yeah.
water just flows.
Yeah, and everything just kind of not fell into place, but there was all these opportunities that were coming up and all these things that you could do, and
Yeah.
that must have felt
and
so good.
I learned also then that you got to always be prepared, man. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you can never know when your life's opportunity turns up. I mean, this happened to me, quite a few times there, and you just had to prepare yourself for this, so that when you get this opportunity, you got to nail it. Because if you get an opportunity and you don't nail it, you're done. You gotta really make an impression.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, as you said, it all kind of happened pretty quick. As you said, from the Barber Saab and the championship there, and the Clio, and the Williams, and then into F3000 with Madrick. This was what 94 we're talking here, wasn't it? And I've spoken to a few guys, not least at lunch yesterday, with guys who have done F3000 around that era, probably slightly before, guys like Martin Donnelly and Perry McCarthy and people like that.
Yeah,
I remember around that era, Formula 3000 cars, they were the first cars as a sort of youngish kid watching racing, being genuinely terrified by, because they were absolutely bonkers cars, certainly in the late 80s. I mean, were they as mad when you got into them in 94?
They were very fast race cars, and they were it was an open formula as well, so that you could actually you could build, you could do your own aero program, own shock program. You could do your own suspension. You could do a lot of things with those cars, and so it was a proper racing series for sure. And I remember I came to Silverstone the first time, and I've had a lot of success by this point, in America and in Renault Clio and all that stuff. And I drove and I was like 2 seconds off the pace, shit, what the hell, like this is terrible. I mean, so really had to go back home and rethink the whole thing, and push myself to an even higher level of driving, So it's interesting, the mental aspect of, you go from Formula 3 or something like that speed. It's quite smooth driving, you carry momentum and this and that, right? Then you get into a high powered racing car like, well, F3000 or Formula 2 for that matter today, and then that's a different type of animal. You have to know how to set it up properly to maximize the car. Everything happens much more fast. Your brain and the visual impressions. You need to process all that information a lot faster.
Sure.
And I think that suited me, but I think that some drivers, if you look through history, they can be really good in lower category formulas, but maybe not get it when they get to quicker cars.
Sure.
For me, the answer to that is the computing speed of the brain. It's not only about driving techniques; it's about how quick you take decisions. So it was a big challenge to get your head around all that, but yeah.
I mean, that's the bit. I mean, I always it's a completely different level here, but I remember seeing an episode of Top Gear when Richard Hammond drove. I think it was Alonso's Renault or something, and he said, my brain doesn't work fast enough to be able to drive fast enough to brake fast enough to get the heat in the tires and I just keep spinning." And he said, because my brain doesn't work fast enough, I can't think, right, accelerate, gear, brake, braking point, and all that kind of stuff, because everything happens so fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of us kind of mere mortals who don't race can't get our head around, is how quickly you have to do things, especially in F3000 around that time. And what I did spot though is that year 94, you kind of had fairly like a steady start at Silverstone, then again Barcelona and Enna-Paguz at Hockenheim, and then something just seemed to click at sort of Spa. I think you went, because you've been running sort of around the top 10, but then you went bang, podium at Spa. I mean, do you remember what clicked on that week? I mean, it was a while ago, but do you remember what clicked on that weekend?
Now, there was a number of reasons. First, like I said, I had to get my head around these things a little bit, so that took me a couple of races, and then don't forget we had a brand new team.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
it was development of the car and getting everyone to gel to work together properly and all that stuff. So there was a lot of things that, it takes time to jump in at that level. It's tough, it's hard. So those were probably the reasons that it took a bit of time.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess when things did start to click with you and Tim and everything else, great podium to be standing on at Spa. Great circuit. I always ask this to people who have raced in F3000 around that circuit. It must be awesome racing a car like that around a circuit like that. And I know you guys don't get scared, but bloody hell, I'd be terrified. I mean, that must have been great.
It was. I remember the following year at Spa. I think it was in '95. I had a shit qualifying because it was wet and dry and all that stuff, and I came up to the bus stop and I misjudged it slightly, and I think I bent my front wheel against one of the curbs on the bus stop, and then it was drying up after, so I wasn't on track when it was dry. So I can't remember, let's say I started 16th or something like that, and my teammate was right in front of me, 15th. But at that, the second year of my Formula 3000, we were up front then, but things like this could happen in F3000, and we started off, and we came around Eau Rouge, and then one lap later we came around Eau Rouge again, and I had a run on him, my teammate, and the car in front of him. I can't remember who that was, but that guy in front there, he decided to lift off, and Eau Rouge was flat, just about flat, but he decided to lift off a little bit, and my teammate was right behind him, and he had to lift off as well, but he had no downforce behind the car, so he lifted off and started spinning, and I was flat out behind him, and I had to lift off, and I started spinning. So both me and my teammate and the car in front, we ended up crashing violently at the top of Eau Rouge, and I never forget the shame when I had to walk down to see Robert Singh in the eye, with his two cars were crashed, like it was nothing left of them.
Oh God.
So yeah, it was a fast track that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, I went there for the World Endurance Championship earlier on this year, and God, it's quick going up the hill. Good God.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was one of those I kind of had to hold my phone camera up, but not move it, just to get the idea of the pace going up the hill. It is incredible. But
yeah.
But no, that was very cool. Just wanted to just skip forward a bit, because you had 2 years with Madwick, and I remember you got the podiums at Hockenheim. Podiums at Estoril. Oh, and Hockenheim as well, and some great circuits to race on. But obviously, '96. I kind of do and don't want to talk about this, but '96. You'd had some like progression with Madwick in '94, '95. '96, you moved to Supernova, the championship winning team. I think was it Vincenzo had won it? I think the year before, Vincenzo Sospiri, I think.
Yeah.
Who had been on? Who's actually been on here earlier this year?
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice chap. Vince.
Yeah, very nice.
And he's doing good things in Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But you kind of moved to the championship winning team. Obviously, I guess a bit of a no-brainer kind of move. When the opportunity came about, were you then started to think, right, we can do something here?
Well, I mean, the second year I was with Madwick, that was the last year when Formula 3000 was open, like an open formula, where you could do a lot of things with wings and everything. And we were actually very competitive. We won the last race at Magny-Cours.
That was your first win, wasn't it? First win in the series.
Yeah, and then that formula was then retired, and then there was a new formula coming in '96. And I got the offer from David Sears to take over the sort of the first spot in the team, and that was a no-brainer, because Supernova was the best team,
sure.
Without a doubt. So yeah, I thought I could win the championship, and we did a really good season. I think I won the most races and pole positions, and we had a great season. I guess the controversy you're talking about is that I didn't win the championship. I got disqualified in the last race, but
Yeah.
yeah, and that was um, you know yeah, that was unfortunate, of course. It was, in my view, it was a racing accident. I mean, Jörg Miller and I, we raced hard all that year. Uh, I think we had a drive shaft snap in qualifying. So
Oh.
I ended up using, my tires, and I didn't end up on the pole. But I took the start, and I was leading in the beginning. But then, since I had a used set of tires, I couldn't keep Jörg behind me, so he sailed by. But then, when his tires were coming off a little bit, then I started to reel him in,
Yeah.
and I was overtaking him, and yeah, it was tough overtaking. But in those days, it wasn't like it is today. You were actually putting moves on, that were it wasn't school book moves always, but
Yeah.
it was accepted
And
usually.
you're able to kind of just
Yeah,
get your, to
yeah,
kind of muscle your way through. Yeah.
yeah. We muscle your way through, which I did. But right at the end of the straight line, we came together. The cars came together, and we both left. We both left the track. But I was fortunate enough to be able to continue.
Yeah.
But I was in such a big lead. I was probably 30 seconds ahead of the field, and normally the punishment would be a drive-through. If it was something like that. But you look at the lead and you look at the drive-through and think, this fucker is going to come out in the lead anyway.
And
So
there's going to be no penalty, and you have to be seen to be
yeah. So
be doing
then
something.
they disqualified me.
Oh,
And
harsh.
of course, I didn't obey the ruling, so I kept driving until they had to give me the checkered flag. But they took all the points, and a big row with the FIA and all that stuff, But young driver, you sort of tell them to go sod off,
Yeah.
And so I got disqualified, and I finished second in the championship. But so that was unfortunate, but again, if you look back on it, I don't think it wouldn't have. I can't see how it would have changed the course of my career.
Yeah. I mean,
But it was a shame that I didn't win the championship. But I did the best I could, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously that it got a bit of publicity, so I guess your name was kind of known, even if it wasn't perhaps for the most perfect of reasons. But I mean, but again, you said that you won a load of races. I mean, remember you won at Hockenheim, you won at Silverstone, and podiums, Magny Cour, Estoril, and all that kind of stuff. It's just a shame that that it ended the way it did. But but that year you were also with Arrows, weren't you, as an F1 test driver, just for part of the season? I mean, it feels like a very unfair question given where Williams were in '93. But I mean, how did it compare, the Arrows '96 to the Williams in '93? It's very unfair, and I've interviewed Jackie Oliver, and if he's watching this, I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't. I didn't know Jackie at the time. It was actually. In '95, I had 3 offers to drive Formula One in '96 and '97.
Really?
Yeah, like test driving.
Yeah.
I had an offer from Benetton, Flavio at the time, and I had an offer from McLaren, Ron Dennis, through Keke Rosberg, and then I had an offer from Leashear through Tom Walkinshaw. Walkinshaw was the team manager for Leashear. And I didn't know what team to choose, frankly, because of course, McLaren was like a great team, but they already had Häkkinen and Coulthard in their seats, so it was difficult to see how you could, get a chance there. So there were all these things that you had to consider, and I didn't know what to do. So I did the only thing I could do. I went to Norway to see a psychic lady.
Okay, why wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly.
Why not?
Yes, and so she told me that.
I just wasn't expecting that.
She told me
Great.
she lived up in the woods somewhere in Norway. It was in the winter as well. It was a lot of snow and no lights. It was really a surreal sort of experience. But she was supposed to be able to see the future. So so she told me that she saw that I'm traveling over big waters. That was one. I had a little piece of a note. I had a notebook with me. I wrote down what she said. She said, like, you're traveling over a big water. And she said, I see milk. And then she said, I see big success. Those three things she told me. And I wrote that down. This is a funny story later, I will tell you. But I came out of that. And then I had a meeting with Tom Walkinshaw the following week in England, in Leafield. And Tom said to me, I had a friend of mine he was kind of helping me, not a manager, but he was like, helping me, taking, advising and stuff, an advisor. Tom was telling us that this is going to be really great with Lee Shear. We do a test drive program for 1996, and then you have a race program in 1997, provided that you do great in the tests. Okay, and then he said, and just don't say anything about this. It's not official yet, but we just signed a deal with Parmalat.
Right.
Yeah. And Parmalat, that's a dairy product company,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, milk.
Yeah.
But I had never told my advisor that I went to psychic. Nobody knew that, So we walk out of the meeting, and I said to my friend, I said, what do you think? And he goes, well, I don't know, this is risky, And I said, well, the deal is done. We're going to sign here. And he's like looking at me, really? Yeah, absolutely. I can feel this is the right thing, Said and done, signed with Tom and Lee Shear, and I went to the press conference in Monaco with the Lee Shear Formula One overalls. I can't remember who drove this. Who was driving?
Mid-90s, no.
Pedro Diniz, maybe. No,
Yeah.
Olivier Panis, I think. And
Panis, he won in
somebody,
96, didn't he? Yeah.
Ricardo Rosset, maybe. Anyway, I was there, and then about a month later, Tom got kicked out of Lee Shear.
Yes.
Yeah, and my contract went with Tom.
Oh, right, okay.
And all of a sudden, I found myself as a test drive for Arrows, which...
Oh, yeah, of course, because he had some later dealings with Arrows, and yeah.
Yeah, and which was like... So Lee Shear was sort of a middle of the road team, It wasn't a McLaren at the time, but it was like they were like 12 to 10 to 15 on the grid, somewhere around there. But Arrows was dead last. And so that was a big difference. All of a sudden, I found myself in that team, And I said to Tom, listen, I understand things have changed, Maybe we should just, maybe just forget about this contract and then see what we could do. And Tom told me, no, this is going to be great. Don't worry about it. It'll work out. Yeah, what can you do? So, okay, fine. So I drove that car a couple of times, but it was a disaster, complete disaster. Like, there was no money for tires, no money for engines. It was. I think I did one test day in Magny-Cours where I was. It was very competitive, actually. But that was the car. We had the car running for a full day with proper tires and all that stuff. But the rest of the time, it was 2 laps, and then we had to change engines, 3 laps, and then we had no tires. And I got really tired of this, especially when I was at the sharp end of Formula 3000. People will say, "Oh, look at these guys can't drive Formula One because you could, how people, how prejudiced it is." So.
Yeah.
So I decided to basically resign. So
Right.
So I did that. I sent a fax to Tom, when I got back home from a Silverstone test, saying, look, this contract isn't working and it's not according to what we have agreed, and I'm stepping down. I'm resigning. Now here Richard Dutton comes in again, because Richard was with this was the race weekend. Formula One was in Hungary, I believe, at that time. And Richard was sitting with Tom in Tom's motorhome, and all of a sudden Tom's fax started going. Was a fax in those days.
Yeah.
And Tom said to Richard, can you check that fax and read it to me? What it says? And Richard takes the fax, and he sees that it's from me, and he sees that I'm resigning from the Formula One testing, And Richard says to Tom, according to Richard himself, this is a good story of Richard. He says to Tom, I think you better read this yourself. And then he left this fax on the table in front of Tom, and then he walked out of the motorhome. And just before he was taking the step out of the motorhome, Tom goes, "Damn!" So he was not very happy about that. And he then went on to send me an invoice for Formula One testing, $500,000, which was nothing we had ever agreed on,
Wow.
Yeah, and so I didn't know what to do, but then I thought, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I took my own letterhead paper and I wrote him an invoice back and say, Formula One testing duties, testing services, 500,000. And then I left a following note I said, since we both owe each other the same amount, why don't we just credit these two invoices? And that was the end of it.
Well played. Well played.
But it was a shame, because how it's critical to time these things right. And so this thing meant that the chance in Formula One, although I had a couple of, one chance after, but that was with a newly started Lola Visa team.
Yes, the MasterCard with Vincenzo and
yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I didn't want to drive cars that weren't competitive, so I turned everything down. So
yeah.
I had nothing at that point. I had
wow.
But going back to this psychic lady, you could say that didn't really work out. But after I finished my IndyCar career in 2005. I had an apartment in Sweden that I was selling and moving out from, and I had this apartment. I had it for a number of years, and in the attic I had a lot of stuff up there. I had to clear it out. So I go up there and I sort through all the stuff that I was going to throw away, and I come up. I see this note that I took from the meeting with the psychic lady. And I read those three things, like you travel over great waters, I see big success, and I see milk. And it hit me at that time. I had to sit down in this attic tower of this house in Sweden, because it was an unreal feeling. What is the only race in the world that you drink milk?
Milk at the end, yeah.
The only race in the world that you drink milk at the end.
Indy 500.
Exactly. And so she wasn't wrong. She was
Wow.
right. But at the time, I thought it was Parmalat and Leisure. Yeah.
You thought, so maybe the milk came a bit later. That was
yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in it. Clearly there is. I mean,
I do think that there's things that are decided for us, But
absolutely right. I did see in the comment section actually, Simon Steele a while ago. He said, "What are Kenny's memories of Tom Walkinshaw?" I think that covers it pretty well. I certainly hope so, Simon. That was brilliant. That was great.
Well, we had our differences, let's say, but he was a very charismatic leader and guy. It's just it didn't work out between me and him, I guess. But there you go.
I don't think you're the last person to maybe not see eye to eye with Tom Walkinshaw, bless him.
No, but I don't have it's all forgiven and forgotten. It's just good memories now,
Yeah. I was going to say it's all water under the bridge, but it feels like milk under the bridge. We'll go with that. Just before we get on to, we mentioned the Indy 500. Anyone who knows, anyone who's watched any of these will know that I always get the Indy 500 in somehow, even if it's completely irrelevant, because it's just the greatest racing. I'm obsessed by it. But talk about going to the States in a minute. But I've seen a comment from Mr. Jerry Marnie. Jerry, lovely to see you yesterday at lunch. That was great. Obviously. DCC Thunder Saloons driver. He has asked, actually, says, "Hi Rich, could you ask Kenny if he found that he was accepted okay when he went to race in the USA, as a lot of the European drivers found it really difficult to break into the American racing scene?" I mean, obviously you'd done a bit with the Barber Saab thing. I guess kind of that question, and then tying into how the Indy move came about. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
I never found it to be. I think that how I grew up in Sweden and how people in America, perhaps their backgrounds, I think it's. I felt it was no problem for me, really. I was always prepared to stand up for my, for my thing, and they like that in the state. They don't make. It could perhaps sometimes be a bit friction in it, but if you stand your ground and if you're in the right, you actually get respected for that. I never had any problems with that, but I had some standoffs with AJ Foyt as well in the trailer, regarding things, and I thought I was going to get fired at one time, but actually I was right, and he it was like we were in Texas and we were running around and we were really competitive. I took the lead the last restart, but I just got sailed by my teammate and another guy, and I finished third. And I was livid afterwards because, it was terrible to be third when you should win. And AJ was like, "Well, you should be happy for third place. That's a great result." And I was like, "It's shit, AJ, because the engine is shit. There was no, my engine isn't strong enough." And of course, that was he took that quite seriously, and so we got into it, and I left, and then he called me the next day, and he said, "Can you come into the workshop?" And I like, "Yeah, okay, fine. I'm going to get fired now." And so I went in there, and he sat me down, and he said, "Well, Kenny, I've checked this thing now, and actually, you're right. Your engine isn't good enough, and it will not happen again." And after that, that's when I started winning, all the, race after race in the championship. So, I mean, you gotta stand up for yourself, I think, and it worked in America, maybe better so than in Europe, because in Europe is a lot of politics always involved. America is more like cowboys, they it's a different mentality. But I raced with the NASCAR boys as well in IROC. As a matter of fact, I was offered a NASCAR seat with Dale Earnhardt's team. I couldn't do it because I was hoping to do a limited NASCAR season, combining it with my IndyCar program, but my team wouldn't let me, so it couldn't happen. But I got along with those guys good. So I had no problem with that. I love the United States with that. They love people that goes after it, that wants to be successful. It's a good environment for that. It's not so good for other things, but for that it's good.
Yeah, no, sure. And obviously there's a lot of non-Europeans in the series now, as we know. Non-Americans, in the series, as we know. So obviously that's been brought up. But you spent, I've got like nine years, nine seasons there. Just want to quickly talk about the first season there. You went out there with the like Gallus team. Firstly, how did it come about? And secondly, what did you think of the IndyCar when you got into it? Because I've always loved them, brilliant little things. But how did it all happen that you ended up?
Well, it was
stateside?
well. That was I had no, after '96, I couldn't continue in Formula 3000. I didn't really have a good opportunity in Formula One, and I wanted to do single seater racing, and so I took my suitcase and I went to the States, and I I hung about, went to all the testings. There was 2 series at the time. It was kart and Indy Racing League was
The
called.
IRL, yeah.
Yeah.
And all the that was messy.
And so I went to all the tests, and there was no rides available anywhere. But I kept going and kept going, and then at Walt Disney in Florida, Davy Jones had a big accident, and Rick Gallus came up to me and said, "Look, you've been knocking down our door on our team so many times now. We have a tire test next week, and we need somebody to do the tire test. And Davey is injured. You won't get the ride because we need a experienced driver, but you can do the test and test out a car." Said and done. I went to Phoenix, and
Cool, so.
I set the lap record there, and then I went back to Sweden. And then a few days later, Rick called me and said, "Look, we were going to have an experienced driver, but the test went really well, and we'd like to offer you the season seat for the season, and we're going to pay you $250,000 and 30% of the prize money." And I said, and I sat there and I said, "Oh," and then it just flew out of me, "If you make it 300,000, I'll be over." And then there was like, I thought, shit, that was maybe that wasn't so smart to say.
I said that.
Yeah. And and he was quiet I thought, oh God, no. And then he goes, "Okay, get your ass over here and we'll start the program." So yeah, so I went from 1996. I think my budget in Formula 3000 was something like 600,000 or 700,000 pounds that I was responsible, together with Volvo, of course, but to finance. And then all of a sudden I'm paid $300,000 to drive, and 30% of the prize money, and those are big in those days. I mean, they paid a lot of money. That was a big difference economically for me, and that's how it started. I have to say I wasn't. I was quick on the ovals, very brave, very quick, but maybe I didn't have all the experience that that I needed. But anyway, yeah.
I saw here that you actually led on your debut in Fit, because the race was at Phoenix, wasn't it? And you actually led. Was it 24 laps on your debut? I mean, you must have thought, this is great. I mean, unfortunately, there was an accident which ended the race, but you must have thought,
yeah,
I'm leading. This is great.
No, like I said, there was nothing wrong with the speed.
Yeah.
But there's quite a lot of things to learn with ovals, because you need to learn how to set the cars up so that the car stays under you. So that's not easy to learn. You can only learn that by experience, really. But the team, they had a rookie engineer that year as well. He was a good engineer on road courses, but we raced ovals, in those days. And I had never raced ovals, so it was like a blind leading a blind when it came to the setup of the car. So we did the best we could, but it wasn't. It was hard to take it to the big teams and the established people.
Yeah, and I guess it's sort of going back to back to that first season in F3000. With the team and the new people involved, things like that.
But Rick gave me the chance. That was
Yeah, I mean, and you certainly took it. There's certainly absolutely, you led your first race. No, there was no disgrace with the results. I mean, you were running towards the top end. Was it 5th at New Hampshire on a traditional kind of oval, and
Yeah.
Charlotte, which was a kind of a notorious.
No. I mean,
so the results were decent, weren't they?
They were decent. It was just we didn't win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then so that was 96, 97. Now 98. You mentioned Super Tex there. I mean, to me, greatest IndyCar racer of all time because he's won in front engine, rear engine. He's done everything. I mean, it's bloody AJ Foyt, for goodness sake. I mean, how did it come to be that you joined him? Because obviously it kind of paved the way for probably the best 2 years, probably the best 2 years of your career, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, how did it come to be that you joined AJ? I mean, did he phone up? Did you run after him? I mean, how did it come to be?
No, nobody. I didn't dare to talk to AJ. He was like bigger than God, and he knocked people over if he didn't like them and all that kind of thing. You didn't really want to talk to him.
Well, he basically slapped Ari Lyondike around the head, didn't he? So which was great. It was good fun.
Yeah. No, I was actually in Florida after the season. Had no ride because Rick, Gallus, they had no money. So, and there was no other team that was, they were all requiring money, and I had no money. And I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden the phone rang, and the guy goes, "Hey, this is AJ Foyt," and I'm like, "Really?" Like I thought somebody was pulling my leg.
Winding you up,
yeah. But after a while, it became obvious that it was AJ Foyt. And he was talking about like he was in Vegas and I was in Florida. And he said, "Well, would you mind taking a red eye and coming out and discussing a deal for next year?"
Wow.
And I said to AJ, "Look, AJ, I will take the red eye immediately if I come to talk about the details. We agree now that we do a deal and we just talk about the details. I will be there tomorrow morning."
Wow.
And he said, "Well, give me a couple of hours. I need to call my sponsor." So we hung up. And,
can I just say that's a cool thing to say to AJ Foyt? That's very cool.
So we hung up, and a couple of hours later, AJ calls and he says, "Well, get your ass over here. I see you for breakfast in the morning." And then he hung up. That was it. And I'm like, okay, scrambling. So I get to Miami and get on the red eye, fly to Las Vegas. I didn't even know what hotel he stayed at because that was never, we never really talked about that. So I had to start looking for AJ Foyt in Las Vegas. Now I couldn't find him. So in the end, I found him at the Harrah's Hotel and Casino. And so we sat down and we had a good talk and he had some kind of big sort of massive triple size sort of English breakfast with bacon and eggs and steaks and hamburgers and all kinds of shit. And I had a yogurt, and he looks at me and he says, "I don't like yogurt." I'm like, "Oh shit."
Oops.
Yeah. So, but we got over that one and we signed the deal. No, we didn't sign the deal. He said to me, "Look, this is how the deal is. My contract is 2 pages, very simple, and we do the deal now with a handshake." And so that's what we did. Wow. Then there's a couple of interesting bits in this. The contract arrived like 2 weeks later, and yeah, it was 2 pages. But the pages were quite big.
Right.
And the lettering was really small. You nearly had to use a magnifying glass to bloody read it. So, I mean, it was still a 15-page contract, but
yeah,
he made a thing of 2 pages only. We do things on a handshake deal here. Yeah. Okay. And then the other funny thing was that I noticed that when we started racing, there wasn't a great feeling between me and the sponsor. It was a sponsor lady. There was a little bit of, reservations, let's say,
sure,
which disappeared once we started winning and, we won the championship. And then I found out the real story, which was that AJ called her to say that what do you think? Should we sign this young Swedish driver? He seems to be pretty good and blah, blah, blah. And then she says, AJ, I think that, we should stay with the driver we have. I like him. And I think he had been second or third in the championship as well. So it wasn't like he was a slouch, But she basically told AJ to not make changes. And of course, AJ then said, well, this is my team and you can do what the hell you like with your money, but I'm going to sign this driver. So you take your decision, what you want to do. You can let me know in a couple of weeks. And that was it. So then I said to Eddie, but what was the reason for calling her in the first place? Like, if you're going to bulldoze her like that, why would you? Well, got to give people a chance, but again, we became really tight friends with me and her, and also the other driver that was there before. There was no hard feelings, but it was just funny stories,
That's great. I just picture AJ saying that as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's so good. That's so good. I love that. But obviously,
it was like when we were in Walt Disney Speedway, in Florida.
Yeah.
And they had these so big, Mickey Mouse and Goofy, they walked around, cheering, kids and stuff. And AJ was working on the car, and he was something wrong, and he was like, he was cussing, like, F this and F that and blah, blah, blah. And then the guy that was inside Mickey Mouse, he knocks AJ on the shoulder, from behind and goes, AJ, there are kids around here. And this is Mickey Mouse country. There are kids around here. This is Mickey Mouse country, like, don't swear. And AJ snaps around and says, F that mouse. Mickey Mouse country. F that mouse.
Oh dear. Oh, honestly, I could listen to stories of AJ all day.
We had
honestly.
so much fun. One time
so good.
It was in I think in Colorado, Denver, and I came into the pits and my pit speed limiter didn't work, so I overshot the pit speed limiter with, like, I don't know, 2 miles an hour. It wasn't much. It was a little bit, yeah. And so the guy, the league had put the biggest pit box observer in our box. The biggest one, really big, heavy dude.
Yeah.
And they handed out a 5-minute sit down from practice because of this pit speed infringement. And AJ comes over and he goes to me, well, how fast did you go? I said, well, it was a couple of miles over. A couple of miles? That's nothing. Get going, But AJ, we can't go. They've sat us down. We can't go. And look in front of the car. There's a big guy standing there, He's twice the size as you, AJ, like. And he goes, start her up, start the car up. So the guy started it up, and AJ looks at me and he points and get going. And I said, no, AJ, I can't. I mean, I'm going to run him over. And AJ gets behind the front wheel of my car and starts pushing the car towards this guy. So I had to slam on the brakes. Otherwise, he would have rolled into him. And then AJ looks at me like pissed off. What the hell are you doing? Sort of thing, And then I said, look, AJ, we got to just take it easy. So he didn't take it easy. He walks over to the guy and he do some gests, with his arms and that. And the guy was just standing there. And AJ, he just, he grabs him by the waist. He gets his arms around this guy. And he must have been 2 heads taller than AJ and big, and AJ was going to throw him over the pit wall. But the guy was so big and so heavy, he couldn't physically do it. So he had to sit him back down. And then AJ was saying to him, because this guy had glasses, he was saying to him, you know, the only reason why I don't punch your effing lights out. And the guy was like, he was scared of AJ. Like, he's like, no, AJ, I don't. And he goes, because you got effing glasses on. And then he goes, take your goddamn glasses off.
Oh my God.
It was so funny, that whole thing, you know. And by that time, you know, these 5 minutes and turned into 10 minutes because this whole thing,
It ends up
going
taking
on.
longer than it would have done to.
Yeah. So, take your goddamn glasses off. And the guy was, of course, refusing to do it. But
That's
that
brilliant.
was funny.
That's
There
fantastic.
was
That's
many funny stories with AJ, and
I'll bet.
but
God.
also a lot of well, probably the most sad thing in my career really was that when, you know, I won the championship with AJ and I won the Indy 500, and had it not been for a broken wheel bearing in the last race in '99, we would have won the championship again.
Yes.
But then I had, you know, there was this civil war in racing in the States at the time, with in the racing league and cars,
Yeah.
and
And the
what was
split.
better, where were the best drivers, and I felt that I got to race the other guys also, otherwise, you know, you want to race against everybody. I want to race against everybody. So I got an offer from Bobby Rahal in 2000 to come and join his team in kart, and I couldn't do more in the IRL. I already won everything. So,
Yeah.
but it was tough to leave AJ, you know, because he was like my dad. He was like my dad. The amount of knowledge that guy had or have, and you know, in his own body. I mean, now it's computers, you know, and 15 engineers, but back then it was him. Or you know, he knew so much, and I learned so much from him, you know. Indianapolis, you know, the wind direction. I mean, sometimes if the wind is in a certain direction, there's no point driving, because you're not learning anything. You're just taking huge risks. So AJ used to go out and look at the trees, and he could see how the wind blew, and so he come back in and said, no, we're not driving today, because when the wind is like this, is no point, you know. He knew so much, and we got along so good, you know. And when I took that decision, I said to Bobby, I'm not going to sign the contract with you. I'm going to talk with AJ and tell him that I have this offer and I will take it, but I'm not going to go to AJ having signed your contract. So you're going to have to trust me that I will come back and sign it.
Yeah.
And so I went to AJ. He was in Charlotte. I flew down to Charlotte because AJ had a NASCAR team at the time.
Yeah.
And I checked into the same hotel, and he came back and he was surprised. He said, what are you doing here? I said, look, I need to talk to you. And so we sat down in his hotel room, you know, and it was a very emotional goodbye, I would say. We both were in tears. And, you know, AJ he's got a big heart, and it was tough to do that. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he respected the way you did it, you know, say that I didn't want to come and say that I've signed a deal. I wanted to, you know, let you know. And
no, he did. And, you know, I speak with him even now once every 6 months, you know, or every quarter, you know, and so we remain friends after whatever 30 years or 25 years. So he's a great guy. But
and he's still going strong, isn't he? He's, you know, he's still doing all right.
He's still doing all right. Yes.
Yeah, this is great.
Good. Yeah.
What a legend! What a legend!
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's yeah. I mean, to me, he kind of is IndyCar. I mean, he's just the man, isn't he? I mean, you touched on a couple of fairly small things you did with AJ, the championship with the 500. I mean, yeah, it's not bad. That first year, I mean, you said that the engine thing, and that's when it all kind of clicked. I was actually going to ask about that, but you had in 98, wasn't it? You had that run in the middle of the season. I mean that. I mean, you can't feel unbeatable ever, I guess, in racing. But in that stretch of races, you must have thought this is fantastic, because the engine was working, the way it should be. You were driving well. I mean, you had the 3 wins. I did. Where was it? I can't remember where it was, but you had the 3, wins mid season, and that kind of really launched your title challenge, I guess, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when did you start thinking we can win this thing? Because this is your first full season in IndyCar, I mean, or IRL. I mean, when did you first start to think we can do this?
Well, I thought I could do it immediately when I drove AJ's car when I signed for the team. Yeah, because it was a big difference from the Gallus car. The how the car drove and how predictable it was and all that stuff. I mean, it was a completely different. When I was with Gallus at Indy the first year, '97. That's when we spent nearly a whole month there preparing for the race. It's not as long. Today is 2 weeks. Then it was a month, and you practiced a lot every day.
Yeah.
And the car was so unpredictable there that I couldn't predict it. And going close to 400 kilometers an hour between 2 concrete walls at that speed, and not knowing actually where the limit is.
Yeah.
And the car is surprising you. It's like I prayed to God in the mornings, to just be alive for the day, and in the evening I thanked him for keeping me alive. That's how much anxiety I had. I went through a full month of that in 98, 97.
Because that was your first time at Indy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I came back in 98, and I had a car that I could do whatever I wanted with, and I mean, I was on the front row, and he was like, wow, led the race. We had a miss happening on the fuel calculations, but so we took ourselves out of contention, but I mean, we were competitive.
That was when AJ destroyed the laptop, wasn't it?
Yes, that's when he hauled the laptop down the pit lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
There was so many funny episodes with AJ. It was so that was really Wild West with him.
Yeah,
it was yeah,
that's great. I mean, I think people are going to know what I'm going to say now. Just to touch on it very quickly, and we'll come to 99 in just a moment. But your first experience of the Indy 500, and as you said, it was a whole month back then, as it had been for years, and I've been hooked on the damn thing as a fan of since '88 when Rick Mears won it. And I mean, there's nothing like it as a fan. I mean, I've been to a lot of races, but the 500, there's just nothing like race day, the noise, the atmosphere, everything that goes on. I mean, what was it like for the first time as a driver, having basically driven your nuts off basically in qualifying and race day? I mean, what's it like as a driver? I mean, it must be hard to focus. I mean, I know you guys are focused on racing, but it is something else, isn't it?
I think when you're a race driver, you don't. I never really let it affect me that much. I don't think. I tried to think about the racing and was quite shut off from the outside world.
Yeah.
But when you go back now and you see the whole thing and you see the speeds of the cars and you see it's a bit scary actually how you could actually do that type of thing. It's. But when you're in there and doing it, it's like being a soldier at war. You gotta do what you gotta do. You can't think about all the things that is around it, because you're not gonna survive. So
yeah. I mean, I remember the first person I spoke to, the first driver I spoke to about the 500 who'd raced it was Ari Lyndike, who was quite good at it. He was quite good at ovals, Ari. And he was just like so matter of fact about it. And I was just saying, how on earth can your brain function that way? You're going that speed with the wind differences and all the kind of stuff that can go wrong. But yeah, he just said you just get hyper focused, as I guess you did as well. And obviously you led that kind of first year as well. I mean, again, it must have been a great feeling. I mean, did you ever allow yourself a moment to think, I'm leading the Indianapolis 500? you must have thought just for a moment, this is awesome.
Yeah,
it must have been cool.
Yeah, but it's I never tried to. I never raced or I never elevated a particular event to anything
Sure.
in my own mind. I just saw them at races. I think
Yeah.
it's important to keep level-headed with those things, because, and that you can see that a lot at Indy. It means a lot, especially to American people.
Yeah.
Indy is big, and you see a lot of mistakes happening there that never happens anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's because people they elevate this event to some ungodly thing, and
Yeah.
they get so flustered and
Mm.
nervous that stuff happens. I always try to look at things very even keeled, and
Yeah.
I think that is a must for a driver.
Yeah, I think they're kind of racing the event rather than racing the race. It's kind of
Yeah,
it's
you have to respect. you have to figure out what actually is the key things to be successful in on any particular track. And at
yeah,
Indy, you don't really race your competitors that much until right at the end. You race the track. That's what you're racing, because it's a when you're going that quick. Wind direction changes, wind speed change, temperature changes. There might be sunshine, there might be a cloud. All these things affect the handling of the car.
yeah,
So you're gonna have to stay on top of all that, and and not get involved in other people's accidents as well, because there's a lot of that.
yeah,
So you're racing the track, and then right at the end, well, then you race the competitors and the track.
yeah.
But you got to be there at the end, otherwise you can't win.
That's the thing. I mean, yeah, they always say if you're in with a shout with 25 laps to go, then that's when it really gets kind of hyper focused. And
Yeah.
um, and I guess you were in that situation in 1999. I mean, obviously you sort of qualified eighth. Middle of row three, pretty good place to be. Car was in a good place. You're the reigning champion. You got to be. I mean, I get the sense you're kind of like quite quietly confident in any race when you've got the car. But it all happened quite late on, didn't it? In '99, obviously, as is the case in most races. But you were what was it? You kind of. I think you were running. Was it up in? I think he was up in second, wasn't it, behind Robbie Gordon, wasn't it? Quite late on. I mean, were you aware that he was having to save fuel or having to?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
told you that the race might come to you.
Yeah. If you go back in the pit sequence, you can see we were leading earlier,
Yeah.
but we stopped when we stopped a little short of being able to go to the end of the race. On full fuel mix, let's say, but we stopped when we could stretch it, and Robbie kept going. So I went from first, I guess, to fourth or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Robbie was leading, and we were saving fuel, and we were picking our way. I can't remember exactly how this happened, but I know that with a few laps to go, I was in second place, and Robbie was in problems because they were hoping for a yellow that hadn't come.
Yeah. Right.
Because he could not, he stopped earlier than us, so he couldn't make it. As long as it was green, he wouldn't make it to the end.
And you obviously knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we stopped right at the limit where we could make it if we saved enough fuel.
Right.
But obviously, if it would have been a yellow, he could have won it.
Yeah.
But there was no yellow, so he was driving slower and slower, and I was now on full fuel. So I was driving like a bat out of hell. I mean, I caught him like with 2 seconds a lap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, we knew that we were going to go around him, but he stretched the fuel pretty far, I must say.
Even then, was it a relief when the car kind of did? Because it was coming off a 4, wasn't it, as he was going on to the last lap, and he just sort of sputtered and slowed. Did you think, oh, thank God for that?
Well, yeah, in a way, but we knew it already. So, but of course, when it happens. But I was right up his gearbox at the time, so we would have overtaken him on the front straightaway anyway with the speed he was going. But it was just gonna to get around, and then then AJ was starting screaming, we won it, baby, we won it, baby, and I was like,
Wait.
Hold on a minute. It's one lap to go. So I asked him, is this the checkered? And he goes, no, come on. I said, shut the F up, you know. And yeah.
I mean, I asked this to Eddie Cheever, and it stuck in my mind because when he took the lead when he won it, 98, wasn't it? Was it 98 he won it?
Yeah.
With crisps. And I asked him what was it like when you shot past into the lead, because he did it with about 15 laps to go, and I said, was it a case of just don't do anything silly? He went, no, I'm going that way. I'm going forward as fast as I can to win this thing. I mean, you only had one lap to do. I'd say only, but was it just a case of concentrate, focus, don't put it in the wall? I mean, or was it just let's go?
No. By the time I was in the lead, it was a matter of just keeping that pace, you know, and just not be stupid about it. It wasn't. I'd learned something in that Monaco race in the Renault Clios, you know.
Yes, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I've said that I've spoken to a few guys who have won the race. What's it like when you cross the bricks, knowing you've won it? I mean, because I was talking to this with a friend at the weekend. You can probably name every Indy 500 winner going back, but you can't name every IndyCar champion. Knowing that this is what people remember. Knowing you've done it. I mean, that must have been incredible. That feeling, just the thought.
Well, it's funny that, because, you know, when you're in a career like I was in my career, I won a lot of races, championships. I was front running, you know, pretty much wherever I raced. And you know, I won X Games, which is a completely different kind of, category. I won rallies, you know, so it's a lot of success there. But when you look at what people remember, it's the Indy 500 and my crash. That's the two things that people remember me for. So it is very important, that race, you know.
It's huge. And you must be so proud because you have your face on it, because it's there forever, and it must be the coolest thing.
Yeah, I think I'm proud of my whole. I mean, I think I had a fantastic career. You know, I really do. I think I couldn't have come out of motorsport in a better way in my own mind. You know, because I think I ended up where I was supposed to end up. You know. You know, obviously, as when you're a kid, you dream about Formula One, but you know, when you get close to things and you see how it works and you see your own personality and you think about where you might fit in the best, and you know, these things and the successes that you know came with it, I couldn't have asked for anything more, really. I mean, I'm so grateful for everything, you know. But that's all in the past. Of course, we don't live in the past. We live in the now and going forward. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. You know, made many friends around. You know, and drivers and team owners and sponsors and all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's the friends and the memories, isn't it, that make it all kind of come together. I mean, I'm very aware of the time. We've got nearly 2 hours. I mean, you kind of, I don't mean to skip over things, but I've got fully engrossed with everything. But obviously, you know, racing with like Bobby Rahal and guys like that, and very cool. There's a couple of things, not quite so nice things. Firstly, you actually won the race in, was it 2001 at the Lausitz Ring when Alex had his awful accident. That must have been incredibly. I mean, it's difficult enough for fans to see and hear about it and all that. What a guy Alex is, but it must have been very difficult for the drivers when you found out. I guess, did you find out later what happened or the severity of it? Because that must have been a really tough day.
Well, you know, it was the whole weekend was crazy. First off, it was the weekend after 9/11, you know.
9/11, yeah.
So it was a very weird feeling in the whole world, I think, at that time.
Sure,
Secondly, Alex is a great guy, you know, and I don't know. I mean, he was trying to win the race, but I was not far behind him, and I had done all my pit stops, you know. So and I had already passed, you know, when he came out of the pits, he spun on out of the pit lane,
Yeah.
and we were already down the road,
Right.
and all of a sudden there was a red, a caution flag, and and I drove quite slowly, and it was a mess. That whole thing, it really was a mess. And my team told me that there'd been a huge accident, but they didn't tell me the ins and outs of it.
Sure.
But I figured it was bad because you had to drive through it, it wasn't pretty, and it was tough. I think it was tough for everyone, the whole racing world, actually. Even the people that weren't there. It was a big thing.
Yeah, sure. And I actually spoke on here with Alex Tagliani, who obviously hit Alex, and
Yeah.
he said he felt awful for a long time until the next time he saw Alex, and Alex came sort of over to him and gave him a big hug and said, "Oh, it's cool, don't worry," which was,
No, I know, and
which is great.
I think I saw Alex the next time, Zanardi, Montreal the next year. He came about. We had a driver signing session with and all of a sudden Zanardi is there and he's walking around like, what the hell, like. But the guy is amazing. Like, then he continued to race, not in Indy cars, but in touring cars, and being quite competitive as well.
And he won races, and
and then he decides to go into the Olympic Games, and all of a sudden he wins a couple of gold medals in the Paralympics. I mean, who does that? I mean, the guy was, he's the biggest hero on this planet.
Absolutely right. And it's kind of fitting that he won one of his gold medals at a racetrack, Brands Hatch, which is pretty cool, because he's won there 3 different things, which is very, very cool. But what an amazing guy.
Yeah. But a lot of bad luck.
Yeah. I think that wasn't that was a freak accident, wasn't it? It's just one of those things. But what a guy. Okay, on the subject of accidents, I don't like talking about accidents, but as you say, the big things that you're remembered for, one fortunately, one less so, was Texas in 2003. And thank you for saying we can talk about this, because I find it amazing that it's the biggest G-force accident ever survived by a racer, and here you are talking about it. I don't really like talking about this kind of thing, but I just say it's a big thing. But I guess we've, if you haven't seen it, you can watch it if you like. I don't like that kind of thing, but do you have any kind of recollection of it? Because it was the season closer at Texas, a super quick place. We talk about freak accidents. Yours was one, wasn't it? It could have easily just been a spin and nothing else. But do you have any recollection of the accident apart from what you've seen back?
Very little, it really knocked knocked the shit out of me. I don't remember much. I remember, that whole season was difficult for us because we didn't have enough power. But for the last race, Honda had come up with some, something, and I remember we had a special place on the fuel map to go to get to this special thing, but we weren't allowed. I wasn't allowed to use it until they told us green, and we were pedaling around in the midfield until then, and then we got the okay to try this, and the car came alive, and that's what happened there. I was just running from 15th, picking cars off, and I think I was up to 4th and was going by 3rd, and there was 12, 13 laps to go, so we were going to win, and that's what's happened, and we got together with Scheckter,
Thomas,
and I, looking at the accident, I think back then, lots of things, but back then to make those cars quick, you had to raise the front of the car up and get the rear down, because it had to do with the downforce levels and drag. and then put a lot of weight at the back of the car, so it was a lot of pendulum effect in the car.
Right.
So that when you go through corners, you didn't have to steer, you just did a little wiggle on the steering wheel, and the car was then reacting, and then
And the weight of the car took
it
it.
arced on itself. You had to, so they were quite difficult, and there was a lot of bumps on Texas, and I think one zigged and the other one zagged a little bit, and when it's an inch or two in between, we touched, and my car took off straight up into a gate post, and that was pretty stiff. But I always look back at the career. I mean, I've had many lap records, I've had lots of records, things.
Yeah.
But they all tend to get broken after a while, because cars develop. Some driver comes along that may be better. The tracks gets modified. These things sort of fall away after a while. So if you want to keep a world record, it's good if you do something that nobody wants to do.
Well,
and so
no one's going to be trying to break that one.
That's why I'm still having this one.
That's the best way to look at it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love how you've spun that, because I'm not going to talk about too much detail, but I mean, you smashed your ankles, you broke your back and your sternum and your leg and everything else. And I love that. That's your takeaway from it. That's
but
that's great.
I wouldn't have it undone either, because I think that if you look back and you say, oh shit, that was, but every little thing that happens to us in the history makes us who we are today.
Yeah.
And so, you learn a lot by going through those things, about life and spirituality and all kinds of things. So that it's yes, it's painful and it's not nice, but it's so many good things that can come out of that as well. So a life is ups and it's downs, isn't it? So yeah.
And it's good things that can come out of it for you and for racing and for other people who are racing today with safety and things like that. There's all kinds of good stuff can come out of it, which is great.
Yeah.
And let's hope it's a world record that you keep. We don't want anyone else to.
Yeah.
If anyone's trying that, they don't need to be racing. Get off the track. But just quickly, your last race, you came back 18 months later or so for the Indy 500. I mean, the race didn't obviously go the way you wanted, but a nice place to sign off, I guess.
Yeah, that was actually interesting, that race, because that's the first time I've felt like I won the race even before the race have started, because
love that.
I came into that race. I mean, Buddy Rice was he was a replacement driver, and he had an accident in qualifying or something or practice where he fractures his neck, and so the team called me up and said, would you like to come and drive? And my accident was like the year 16, 17 months before, I think, and I wanted to come back, and I had a couple of offers to come back in the beginning of 2005 with teams that were only doing the Indy 500. But I turned them down because I know that if I'm going to get back into a car, I got to be competitive, because otherwise people are going to say, oh yeah, he was good, but that accident really messed him up. Yeah. So I needed a proper chance to make an impression, and it's hard to do that when the teams aren't racing full season. So I was waiting for a chance, but it never came. And then this thing happens, and it was just a couple of days before the last qualifying weekend at the Indy 500. So I just went down in my basement and grabbed my helmet and drove over to Indy, and we qualified and set the fastest qualifying time in the whole field. I mean, when we did that, it was like that was the race. That was the biggest victory for me. I showed that I can do this whenever I want. We had a good race in run in the race as well. I think we were up to 9th or 10th. Because I had
23rd because you hadn't done the first session.
I had to start way back in the field despite being the fastest car because of the rules. But we were up to 9th and 10th, and then a little nut on the steering arm came loose and we had to retire. But the next day I spoke with Mario Andretti in the evening. He was with Newman Haas, and the next day, Paul Newman called me and said, "Look, we were racing at Milwaukee this weekend, and somebody drove. I can't remember who was the driver. He had broken his back at the Indy as well. So he said, "Look, we're looking for. Would you like to come and drive?" And I didn't take him up on it because I was really worn out. I was completely worn out, the mentally worn out after all that. So I took a few months to sort of decide what to do, and then I decided to call it quits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, and it's sort of nice to go on your terms as well and what you thought was best and everything like that, rather than anything else, which is great. And as you said, you had nothing to prove after.
Yeah, it was a good way to sort of end that part of the career, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. No, brilliant, and thanks for talking about it. I know that's not an easy thing, but I mean, you've done loads since. We touched on it with rallying and things like that. There's a couple of bits I want to talk about though. You set a lap record with obviously you were doing a lot of work with McLaren on the road cars and the development thereof. We love McLaren. Who doesn't? Firstly, just a cool brand to be working for, and also setting a lap record around the Nürburgring for road legal cars. Pretty cool thing to have.
Yes, no, it was fantastic. I was with McLaren 8 years and developed a lot of the cars from 720, 620, 720, 600, I guess it was called, 720, and on to the cars that they have today, the Artura and 750 and Solace and all kinds of things. But it was good. I think I always been interested, like I said, in the creative process of making a car drive nice and drive, bring out the performance and make a car, predictable and stuff, because that's what you need to win races. So I had an opportunity to work with that for 8 years with McLaren. It was fantastic. And then the lap record that came about, that was Dean Lansanti, who owns Lansanti Motorsport, and myself. We came up with that idea because, Dean is a fantastic guy. He runs a super great operation. And so we were talking about this, and so we managed to get the help from McLaren to develop a few things. So we developed. We took a GTR. P1 GTR, and then Dean made it road legal. We developed tires with Pirelli, road legal tires, and we lightened it and made more horsepower and all kinds of things, more downforce. And then we went to Nürburgring and we set the lap record for street legal cars. It was a cool little project. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And obviously like the Nordschleife, what a circuit. I mean, goodness me.
That's the only track that makes your heart beat a little faster. It's that and Indianapolis 500. Those tracks you don't play with. You have to have respect for those things, because you can end up being in a hurt. Being not alive there.
Yeah, that's as to say, it's places you don't mess with, which is very cool.
Yeah,
that's great. There's loads of stuff we could talk about. One thing I do want to pick up on, you were in Driven with Sylvester Stallone, weren't you? And Burt Reynolds.
Yes,
Little place to Hollywood. That must be pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that was an experience, to do that. And we were in at the premiere of that movie. We were in Hollywood at the China Theater, and we drove our race cars around on the Hollywood Boulevard there, and it was many things happened in my career that just are things that sometimes think back on and think, was it actually real?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's sort of outside the motorsport world, isn't it? That's like the big, like the global conscience of Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. It's, very cool. Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
Just quickly, you've done a load of like historic racing and stuff. You've won with, you've seen success at like Goodwood and stuff. You've raced against some guy called Tom Christiansen, who's something about Le Mans. I don't know.
No, I didn't race against him. We shared
Sorry, with
car.
him. Sorry,
We shared car. You know,
you shared the car, and
we raced against each other in Formula 3000 way back in the day.
Oh
yeah, in
Yeah,
1996, I believe it was.
yeah. Oh, it's just cool hearing all these sort of stories from different parts of racing and stuff. And you raced with Adrian Newey as well. You won the Whitson Trophy. Remember that? With Adrian Newey. That's cool. And two guys that have done okay in the world of motorsport, aren't they?
Yeah, they've done very well. Yeah.
Great enough.
They're good guys, very good guys. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I bumped into them both very briefly at Goodwood. I think it was the year that I think it was last year. I said I was going to try and send you a message, but we never caught up. But I caught up with Tom and with Adrian and a few others. But yeah, he's a nice guy, Tom. Don't think he realizes how good he is. Still, even now. Yeah. No, that's great. Okay, very quickly, just to wind up, we always do some little fun questions, things like that. I think we may have answered one or two as we go, but just before we go, did you have a favourite driver when you were growing up? I think we touched on it right at the start.
Well, my first hero was Björn Waldegård, actually, so that was the favourite. Yeah. Nigel Mansell I liked a lot as well. Yeah. Which is funny because when I helped Marcus Ericsson, we went to where were we? We were in Wales, Pembrey.
Yeah.
Pembrey, windy and rainy, and we come out there and Nigel.
Even by Wales standards, it's wet and windy, isn't it?
Yes. And Nigel was standing there on the pit wall with his sport cap on, and I said to Marcus, do you know who that is? And Marcus goes, what that old man over there? I said, yeah. Do you know who it is? I said, no, I don't know. Okay, yeah. Well, he's Nigel Mansell, he's one of the best drivers in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
No, I should say, so I had two. My first sort of hero motorsport was Nigel, because obviously mid-80s and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I met him, and I won this in a competition. It was signed Nigel.
Oh, look at that!
It's only a replica steering wheel, but it sits right next to here every time.
Yeah.
Oh, what a guy! What a guy!
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. Good old Nigel. Is there a driver you particularly admire now in any series, IndyCar, F1, anyone like that, who you think is doing good things?
There's so many drivers. They're all good. It's just that today it's really difficult to. It's a different sport today. I don't really follow too much, to be honest with you. I go to the Indy 500 each year. I did help Bobby Rahal about a year ago to do some structural developments in his team and that. So I was part of his team for a year to sort of help that situation a little bit. But there are many good drivers, but I mean, obviously Alex Palou and he's a standout in IndyCar racing, I would say, and of course Piastri and Norris and a few others in F1 are good as well. They're good drivers, all of them. But it's the racing is, I don't know. For me, it's
kind of lost something.
Whenever I look at Formula One and from the early 90s and that, the sound of them, the way they drive, you could see how they're battling,
twitchy, and
it's different today. But I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not as difficult to drive. It's just that it's not so exciting anymore. I guess it's that for me.
No, I would agree. I always like to go back on YouTube, look at the old sort of IndyCar and the F1 from the early 90s, late 80s, and that kind of stuff. And it's very cool. Very, very cool.
The same with the IndyCars, really, because I mean, I remember the kart cars, for example. I mean,
they were bouncing over the bumps and twitchy, and they were.
They were. We had over 1,000 horsepower.
Jesus.
And they really moved. I mean, it makes a difference, and it was a high revving V8. Like 18,000 RPMs. The sound, the whole thing is. It's not only about how difficult it is to drive and lap time. It's about the whole experience, how it actually transmits to the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just then 3 more. Okay, did you have any rituals or superstitions before you go racing? Because I know someone put their left glove on, or I also know someone who carries a little stone in their race suit.
Oh yeah,
Um,
well, the Indy 500 milk bottle I have 3 lucky pennies in it, and I walked around with those in my shoes for about 6 months before I won that Indy 500. So I obviously did that.
wow.
Um,
Okay.
and
Cool.
and I always stepped into the race car from the left side and also out of it from the left side. And sometimes that was difficult because if you were parked up against a wall or something, it was. But I always tried to get out from the left and in from the left.
That's cool. Always like these little things. It's always good.
Yeah.
Okay, what have we got here? Okay, you kind of alluded to NASCAR stuff. Was there anything that you would like to have tried? I mean, you said you're very grateful for your career and what you've raced. Is there anything you would have liked to go at with F1 or NASCAR or supercars or anything like that?
No, it would have been nice to get everyone. I think everyone would love to be in a top flight F1 team.
Yeah,
In a way, I think it's more difficult to get there than it is when you are there, because if you are in a, usually there's one team that's better than the others, and then you don't have 20 cars to battle. You might have 2 or 3 or 4. So it's a good position to be in. But that would be one. I wish I could have done some NASCAR racing,
yeah,
but that didn't happen. I did some IROC racing with the NASCAR guys, and that
yeah.
was a lot of fun. So I got to race those stock cars, but not in the actual Cup Series.
No, sure, sure. No, NASCAR's cool.
Yeah,
They're just crazy. The
yeah,
power of them, phew.
yeah.
But they need to get rid of the playoffs. I'll just say that is a ridiculous idea.
I did test it. I did when I drove with Chip Ganassi. I helped his team test quite a lot in
Oh,
NASCAR.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, nice one. I remember Alex Tagliani saying he was really confident going into a NASCAR until he drove the thing, and he went, "Oh my god, this thing's heavy."
It is heavy, and it's quite agricultural. The way they they were back then. Now they're probably better, but
Yeah,
you race what you race. You race what you have.
yeah, absolutely right. Good stuff. Okay, have you got a favourite circuit and a favourite car that you've ever raced?
No, I wouldn't say so. I like the kart cars. Those cars were probably the most exciting cars that you could ever drive, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but favorite circuit, Road America is a great circuit. Watkins Glen, Indianapolis,
yeah,
Nürburgring is a. I like circuits that are, you have to, where you. I like the risk aspect of racing. I like the balancing. Um, it's part of the sport in terms for me. So those tracks bring out a little bit extra for me.
yeah. Love
Yeah.
that. That's great. Some great circuits there. Okay, last question. I ask it to everyone, and it's very unfair because there's no answer to it, and I don't even know why I ask it, to be honest. But it's something I've always done. You've shared the track with some amazing sort of drivers, some very very talented guys. I'm just going to pick a few, and also you mentioned like Billy Boat and Buddy Rice and Jimmy Bass and guys like that, hugely underrated guys. Brian Herter, Ari Lyndike, Cristiano D'Amata, Paul Tracy, Kanan, Cheever, Castro Neves, Alan Menu, Irvine, Andre Lotterer for a bit, and obviously Tom Christiansen, the Andretti's, Ratzenberg, Brabham Hill, I mean, McNish, Barrichello, Coulthard, DeFarron, God bless him, Dan Weldon, Ditto, Seb Bourdais, Dixon, Dario, Dario Franchitti, etc., etc. Is there any in your career that stood out, maybe not for being the best, but just as being different, or someone you really respected, or anything like that?
Well, you just rattled off nearly everyone. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's so little between those drivers. It's different styles and stuff. But I will say this. I think Dale Earnhardt probably was. I will say
Oh,
Dale Earnhardt
wow.
because and that's not because he might not have been better than anyone, but he was unbelievably good at reading the air. Um, and I remember when we raced IROC, how he could read the air. Stock car racing is different from open wheel racing. The airflow around those cars, and how you can influence other cars by not even touching them, but placing your nose in certain places. And he was exceptionally good at that, and that's why he was so successful, of course.
Yeah.
But I did study him for a couple of seasons and how he conducted himself in that, and he was special with that.
Yeah. And I think he kind of, in the nicest possible way, he kind of knew that he was the man, didn't he? He just sort of,
He
yeah,
knew. He knew.
he
Yeah.
had everything about him. That's cool. It's good to hear Dale Earnhardt getting some love, which is, yeah, totally deserved. What a legend.
But
Um,
that's not to take anything away from all the others, because they're
yeah,
all
of
great,
course,
I
of course.
mean, Montoya was great, There's a lot of great drivers, Paul Tracy, crazy,
Yeah,
but good.
yeah. Oh, Paul Tracy.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting character. No, that's great. No, lovely. I think that's a great way to end. I mean, we've gone over by a long time. Apologies for that, but firstly, thank you
And
to everyone.
I have to also say Jill DeFerran, actually,
Oh,
because
yeah,
Jill and I, we sort of came up together. We raced Opel Lotus together. We raced F3000, Indy cars, and all that stuff. So we knew each other for a long time, and he was always very competitive, Jill. Um, so it was very unfortunate what happened. That was a shock to me.
yeah. Very
But he
sad.
was a great driver.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what everyone's told me, just a great guy as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and that really is a great way to end. But yeah, thanks to everyone for the comments and everything. I've seen them all, and we've covered things and all that kind of thing. But of course, biggest thanks go to you, Kenny. Thank you very much for coming on. As I said, I've been at you for a while to come on, so thank you for giving in and coming on and having a chat. I'm very grateful. It's been brilliant speaking with you.
Thank you so much, and you too. Great show.
Thanks very much. Great stuff. And guys, we'll be back next week. But in the meantime, stay safe, be happy, and enjoy the motorsport. That's what we're here for. Cheers, guys. Good night.